Hello and welcome to the academyofworship.org YouTube channel. My name's Chris. Today we're going to be talking about leading worship and using a rhythm instrument like an acoustic guitar or maybe even a piano, and why it's important that you keep in time and how you work on that skill. For the video in the intro, you saw me playing acoustic guitar. Now, when I lead worship, that's what I lead from. One of the skills that I found to be important early on when leading worship is having a good rhythm. In the intro vid, you'll notice there's a click track in there. I included that to kind of show where modern worship is going and one of the things you might encounter when playing a rhythm instrument. It's not uncommon to have a click track in live worship now, not only to keep the band synced up, but also to allow you to play with pre-recorded tracks and things like that. That way the band can stay together, know where they are, and successfully lead people in worship. Now, it's not just worship music that has a click track in it. I play in a different band that we also use a click track. We'll be talking about the merits and pitfalls of a click track in another video. But for right now, know that we're going to be using a click track in the example. Now, you may or may not actually use a click track, and the things we're going to be talking about today are still important even if you don't. There's a few main parts of the band or a band that should have really good rhythm. The first one is obviously the drummer. The drummer needs to have relatively good time, and on top of that, be able to play a rhythm over that good time. In most modern bands, you're going to either see a worship leader or leader leading from an acoustic guitar, maybe an electric guitar, and maybe even possibly a piano or keyboard. In the case of the acoustic guitar, which I play when I lead worship, it's a very straightforward, simple instrument. Now, one of the things you have to get good at is strumming. And unless the band is starting completely together and there can be a count off and everyone starts at the same time, the acoustic guitar or piano is going to be the one setting the tempo. Like I mentioned before, the intro song had a click track in it. In many cases, if you're using a click track live, no one else but the band is hearing it. So as a worship leader, or at least the person playing the rhythm part of the song, your job is to listen to that click track and stay on it as well as synced with the rest of the band. One of the other things you may notice is that click track was actually doubled. So instead of it being click, 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 and putting a sound on every quarter note of the measure, it was actually putting one on every eighth note of the measure. The reason for that is anything under about 80 beats per minute can get kind of slow to subdivide when you're playing a guitar or something like that. So I found it really helpful to put it in 8/8 time signature, which keeps the downbeat in the same place but doubles the amount of clicks. And again, we'll talk about that stuff in an entirely different video specifically dedicated to click tracks. So what are the things you can do as an acoustic guitar player, in this instance, to stay on time and to understand how to play with a click? Well, the first thing you need to do is get some kind of click source. You can download an app on most cell phones, if not all cell phones, that will give you a metronome. The first thing to do would be to find the BPM, or beats per minute, of the song. There's a couple ways to do that. There's some online resources that'll help you out, so you can look up the name of the song and the artist and they'll just straight up tell you what the BPM is. Or you could actually tap it into your phone or other metronome type device and simply tap the device in time with the song. And that should give you a general place to start as far as BPM goes. And the first thing you can do as an acoustic guitar player is start playing the downbeats. Now, every guitar player knows that there are subdivisions when you're strumming, so you're not just doing this. Right? Most acoustic guitar players are doing something like this. That's a subdivision. So not only are you hitting the downbeat and every other second, third, and fourth beat of the measure, you're actually putting strums in between. They're usually upstrokes, but with some exceptions. So the thing you want to focus on is that downstroke. Listen to your metronome and play downstrokes on every beat. So if your click is click, 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 you want to play. And make sure that you can do that steadily for a while. Now, getting out of that mindset is kind of hard because us guitar players want to strum. We want to do more than just downstrokes. But refrain from doing that. Just work on your downstrokes. And if you can feel the pulse of the music, especially if the metronome is doubled, then you're well on your way to having good rhythm and good timing and a good internal metronome. Once you feel comfortable doing just downstrokes, try focusing on the downstrokes while adding an upstroke. So something like this. You'll find that's pretty hard too because we're not used to strumming like that. It's a very even strum pattern. We're not putting anything else in between it. But once you feel that subdivision happen and your hand going down on every single beat, so 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you're able to fill in with upstrokes in between it, then you can add the 16th notes in between that, which we kind of do naturally and don't even think about. Something like this. One thing you'll notice is my pick or strumming hand doesn't ever stop moving. On an acoustic guitar or any other instrument that you want to keep time with, it's a good idea to keep the pendulum swinging on your arm. It's when you stop and start is when everything gets kind of messed up. You'll notice that my hand is accentuating every beat, but it's also not stopping and letting the pick hit the upstrokes and downstrokes that it needs in between those main beats. Like this. Eventually you'll hear those quarter note beats, or 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the measure, and you'll sync your arm up with those. And it'll become second nature. This goes for any instrument. A piano player or a keyboard player will use some of the same technique in that they'll focus on just the beats of the measure and keeping that rhythm. Now, there's other techniques on a keyboard that you use that you don't use on an acoustic guitar, but the idea remains the same. You want to be able to hear the beats and then be able to subdivide them with extras. So on a keyboard, you would use the filler notes on the chord instead of just playing big block chords. You would maybe play a block chord, and then what would be a strum for an acoustic guitar player would be using those same notes on the block chords and move them around. Same kind of idea. But make sure you spend a lot of time with a metronome. It can get really monotonous and really boring, really fast, but I promise that the more you do it, the easier it will get, and the better it's going to benefit you and your band when you play with them. Because when you're starting a song and the drummer counts you off, but he's out until a little while later in the song, kind of like that intro song that we had, he or she's going to really appreciate the fact that you didn't speed up or slow down, that you stayed the same tempo. You'll be able to lock in with the drums or other rhythm instruments a lot better, and everyone's going to appreciate that. The other things that really come out of this that are a little more ethereal are, it just sounds more polished, and people will hear your acoustic guitar or other rhythm instrument as being more professionally played. You'll notice that if you can play a rhythm instrument without speeding up or slowing down, you'll get a lot of respect, especially from veterans and people who have played music for a very long time. Maybe you are one of those veterans that really hasn't paid attention to their rhythm instrument, or at least rhythm playing, and it's something you need to work on. I make a promise that if you do, it's going to benefit everybody, and all the other aspects of your playing will get better as well. If you're an electric guitar player, how does this benefit you? Well, as you saw in the intro song, I was playing a relatively simple part in the electric guitar. Something like... and I embellished on top of that. The idea was to show that even electric guitar players or people that are playing lead lines or higher parts still benefit from keeping good time and having good rhythm. When you play a part like that, you're still focusing on the beats. So every 1, 2, 3, and 4. So when I hit those chords, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And when it comes to a picking part like that, I'm still paying attention to that subdivision, so I don't speed up or slow down when I hit the pick parts. So it doesn't sound something like this. You want it to be nice and even. So really focus on what the click or the metronome is doing, and how your pick is hitting the string, or if it's hitting before or after the beat when it really shouldn't be. So there's a lot to work on, and honestly, it's just time spent with a metronome. So I'm going to encourage you to get an app on your phone, set it up, go sit in your room or somewhere else where you can be alone and not annoy people with the constant click of a metronome, and go over and over songs you already know. You may notice that you're all over the place, which is good because that means there's room for improvement, right? We all can get better. So that's it. Go have fun with a click track or a metronome, and find those places where you need to improve, because I promise you we all have them, right? So go turn some knobs, flip some switches, turn up that click track, and until next time, I'll see you later.